Hi, I'm Brian Stelfreeze, and we're about to do some drawing here. When I do a drawing, one of the things that I try to do is really think about exactly what I want to achieve with the drawing. Really think about the emotion, really think about the pose, everything. So I'm going to do Batman on this one. So what I'm going to do is maybe a crouching shot of Batman because I want to really use as much of the paper as possible. And the way that I handle things is I jump in there and I try to make as many mistakes as possible. And I know that I'm just going to completely screw this up because what I want to do is I want myself in a position of not creating, but editing. I think creating is very difficult to do, but editing is real easy to do. So what I'm going to do is just kind of jump in here and just sort of slash and burn a little bit until I get a couple of shapes that I like. And I sort of like those shapes. They probably don't make sense to anyone but me at this stage in the game, but that's cool. And once I've got these shapes down, I'm gonna sort of start going in and refining it. Like I think the worst thing you can do when you're drawing is to go right in for the anatomy. For me, I just kind of go with how things feel. Instead of jumping in and going for the details, I'm kind of just like getting the whole thing right. And by getting the whole thing right, I can actually catch myself making mistakes before I make them. Where I can kind of go, okay, well that's in the wrong position, this is in the wrong position, let me change this and let me move this over here. But I kind of like what's going on here. I think this is going to be pretty cool. And since this is kind of going in a good direction, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start thinking more seriously instead of about the anatomy. And even with anatomy, I don't try to really kill myself and name all the muscles and all that stuff. I don't really think any of that stuff is important outside of art school. I just want to get the shapes so they feel right, and especially with a character like Batman. I think the more perfect and exact you go with something, the less emotional it is. So with this character, I want things to kind of like be a little bit spooky. And also I'm gonna just get in here with my brush and I'm just gonna black the hell out of this stuff. One of the things that I like to do when I'm doing this type of drawing is not do everything in the pencil stages. What I want to do is I want to do some of the stuff in the pencil stages, but I want to sort of create some of the stuff in the inking stages as well. That way it just doesn't feel like I'm doing the same job over and over and over again. I believe I have enough down here now so I can actually start going to ink. And what I'm using to ink is a Pentel brush pen. What I do is I buy these and then I immediately like sort of crack them open and pull the little plunger out of there and dump out all the ink, and then I put my own ink inside of it. And the ink that I like using the most is this Japanese ink called Holbein drawing ink, and it's really good. It really flows really well, and it's incredibly black. And again, I'm not going to be too careful with this. I'm just going to kind of slash and burn with it. And kind of let the tool do some of the work for me. And at this stage, I sort of think of it as not actually trying to control the brush, but kind of trying to collaborate with the brush. Knowing about what the brush is going to give me and just seeing what happens. This is a great tool because you can get like everything with this. You can get like really precise, super like lines as fine as your hair, but at the same time you can get like just really thick and chunky lines. which I think really works well for this type of piece. And again, as I'm doing this, I'm totally editing on the fly. If I see something in the drawing stage that I think works for me, cool. But if I see something in the inking stages, I'll just drop the drawing stage and just clean it up in the inking stage. Doing this type of work here, where it's like, I don't think the anatomy is absolutely important or anything like that. But, you know, I do figure drawing all the time. So a lot of this stuff is just stuff that's kind of in my subconscious. So I don't really have to think about like what muscles I'm trying to draw or anything like that. It's just kind of stuff that that I've just pushed into my subconscious, and I'm really concerned about getting the emotion. I'm really concerned about getting the energy. I'm not really at all concerned about all the little minutiae and details. I think the last Batman illustration I worked on for DC was they did like a Dracula sort of sort of Batman series of covers, and I got to do Batman with the brides of Dracula, so that was fun. But Batman's probably the character I've drawn, like, if you count from being a kid, it's probably the character I've drawn the most. Again, on something like this, I'm gonna sort of do his anatomy and everything a little bit more jagged. So he's kind of almost like a horror story Batman. And something that you see me do as a painter, but I don't often do it when I'm doing pen and ink stuff, except for when I'm doing a little bit more expressive stuff like this, is where the details are, like his face and all of that. I'm gonna be a little bit more precise. I'm gonna be a little bit more sharp with that stuff. In fact, I'll even go back over that stuff to really kind of bring up the resolution a little bit. But as I move away from those details, then I really don't want things to be so clear. I want things to be a little bit more suggestive as I move away. Something that's cool is most artists, we have a tendency to move the pad around a lot, sort of while we're drawing. I remember visiting Scott Williams, and he said that he believes every inker has like one good line, and what you have to do is you have to figure out the position of the pad to actually do your one good line. And when he inks, it's almost like watching a potter working on a wheel. The page is just constantly spinning. See, what I'm gonna do is refine some of the details just a little bit more. Like, the way that I think about it is this is the area that you're gonna look at, so I want that to be just a little bit sharper. And what's really kind of cool that ended up being a total accident was I did architectural illustrations before I got into doing comics. So that kind of really got me to a point where I can sort of knock out backgrounds without having to worry over them too much. And I think oftentimes backgrounds are like the most annoying part of drawing, and people have a tendency to learn how to draw figures but not really pay much attention to background stuff. One of the things that I like doing is, because I think Gotham is such a part of Batman, is just really sort of suggesting Gotham City in the background. Okay, and after all of that, just kind of sealing it off. I'm Brian Stelfreeze, and this is my Batman.